Nancy Guthrie case, what can the blood at her door reveal? Expert analysis, what happened to Nancy Guthrie? And why could something as small as blood found near her door become an important piece of evidence? In this video, we examine the Nancy Guthrie case through the lens of forensic evidence and investigative procedure. We'll focus specifically on what blood evidence can reveal, what it cannot prove on its own, and why investigators must carefully connect every forensic clue to the wider timeline. This is an analysis of publicly discussed evidence, not a claim that any person is responsible unless investigators or a court establish that fact. When investigators discover blood at or near a doorway, the first question isn't simply, whose blood is it? There are several questions. Who does the blood belong to? How much blood is present? Where exactly was it located? Was it on the door, the ground, clothing, or another surface? And importantly, does the pattern suggest that the blood was deposited during an injury, transferred from another object, or placed there at another point in time? DNA testing can potentially identify the person whose biological material is present, but DNA doesn't automatically explain how it got there. Forensic investigators, therefore, look beyond the genetic profile. They examine the physical location and condition of the evidence, document the scene carefully, and compare it with other evidence gathered during the investigation. What blood patterns can tell investigators? 132.25. Bloodstain patterns can sometimes provide information about movement and the circumstances surrounding an injury. For example, investigators may examine the shape, size, distribution, and position of stains. A pattern may help establish whether blood was transferred through contact, whether someone moved through an area, or whether an injury occurred close to a particular location. But forensic science has limits. A bloodstain pattern should not be treated like a complete video recording of what happened. Interpretation can depend on many factors, including the surface, lighting, environmental conditions, movement, and the quality of the evidence. That's why the strongest investigation doesn't rely on one clue. Instead, investigators compare the blood evidence with surveillance footage, phone records, witness statements, physical objects, vehicle information, timestamps, and other forensic findings. The location of the blood could be particularly significant because a doorway can represent a transition point. Someone may have entered or exited. Someone may have been injured nearby. Blood could have been transferred from a person, an object, or clothing. That means investigators need to establish a timeline. Was the blood deposited before or after Nancy Guthrie disappeared? Was the area disturbed? Was there evidence of forced entry? Were there additional biological traces nearby? Each answer potentially changes the interpretation of the scene. And this is where forensic investigation becomes less about one dramatic discovery and more about connecting multiple pieces of evidence into one consistent timeline. The most important point is this: blood evidence can be powerful, but context is everything. A DNA match could potentially identify whose blood was present. A blood pattern could provide clues about movement or injury, but neither piece of evidence, standing alone, necessarily tells investigators exactly what happened. The real significance comes from whether the blood evidence agrees with the rest of the case. If investigators can establish who left the blood when it was deposited, how it reached that location, and how that evidence connects to the broader timeline, it could become an important part of the investigation. News to raise serious questions, and forensic evidence may help investigators separate speculation from verifiable facts. Remember, every piece of evidence has to be examined carefully before conclusions are reached. If you found this analysis informative, follow the channel, like this video, subscribe for more case analysis, and comment below with your thoughts on what the blood evidence could potentially reveal.